Today we're going to be working on some problems that are dealing with solving equations with fractions, and I know everybody loves those fractions. Don't be afraid of them though, it's actually not quite that bad. In order to solve a problem where a fraction is present, we need to know one important thing, and that is we need to know what a reciprocal is. Now the reciprocal means to flip your fraction. So here I have 9 over 8. The reciprocal of that is 8 over 9, so you need to flip it. And that's going to be something that you hear me mention a lot when we're dealing with fractions. Because in order to get rid of that, we need to multiply by its reciprocal. Okay. So the goal here is to solve for our variable a. In order to do that, we need to do the STADMAPs as we talked about in a previous lesson. So we're going to start by getting rid of any subtraction or addition first, left to right. And I do have a plus 2 here. So I'm going to start out by minusing 2 from each side. Again, if you want to split your sides into 2 equal parts, I mean, that's perfectly fine. You can do so. I'm no longer going to do that because hopefully we're pretty familiar with how to isolate a variable. Okay, so 6 minus 2 is 4. Okay, now I need to get rid of that dreaded fraction, that 9/8 that appears in front of my a. Now I am multiplying, and usually we think the opposite of multiplying is dividing. In this case, we are going to multiply by the fraction's reciprocal. So as I had mentioned previously here, the reciprocal would be your 8 over 9. By doing that, and I have to do that on both sides, I would cancel out the fraction and I get a 1a. And that's the same as just writing a. Okay, and then over here we're going to try to simplify if we can. So 4 times 8 is 32. 1 times 9 is 9. I don't believe that we can simplify that any further. We can change it to a mixed number if we want. 9 goes into 32 3 full times with 32, so 27, 3 with 5 left over, if I did that correct. So I believe either one of these would be an acceptable answer. We can leave it as an improper fraction, or we can change it to a mixed number of 3 and 5/9. For the next one, I have 5/2 times y minus 5. Well, using that STADMAP, I'd have to get rid of that fraction in front of the parentheses, because the parentheses would always come last. So in order to get rid of that fraction, we're going to multiply by its reciprocal. So 5 over 2, the reciprocal would be 2 over 5. And whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So here this cancels out, and I'm left with just y minus 5 on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, 0 times 2/5 is simply just 0. So my last step to getting y by itself is getting rid of that minus 5. So doing the inverse of minus 5 is plus 5 on both sides. So this would give me y equals a positive 5. Alright, next my goal is to get I by itself, so I do need to get rid of that fraction of dividing by 4. So the opposite of dividing by 4 is multiplying by 4. So I'm going to do that on both sides. When I multiply both sides by 4, I'm left with 7 minus I equals negative 1 times 4, which is just negative 4. I am then going to subtract 7 from both sides so that I can work on getting that I by itself. When I subtract 7, I'm left with a negative I equals a negative 11, because negative 4 minus 7 is negative 11. Okay, I cannot leave my variable negative, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply everything by a negative 1. That way my variable is now positive. But that means my 11 also becomes positive. So my final answer is I equals positive 11. This is similar to a problem that we've done. So let's get rid of the fraction in front of the parentheses there. So to get rid of that fraction, we have to multiply by its reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 4 over 5 is 5 over 4. And we have to do that to both sides. So on the left-hand side, I'm left with I plus 4 equals, let's see, 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 4 is 4. And then I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. Oh, those dreaded fractions with our subtracting. Okay. In order to subtract fractions, we need to have a common denominator. And right now that common denominator is going to be 4. So I need to multiply my second fraction by 4 over 4 to get that common denominator. So this is going to be 16 over 4. And then I can finally go ahead and subtract my numerators. So 15 minus 16 is negative 1. And I keep that common denominator of 4. So I actually equals negative 1/4. And the last problem I'm going to work through today, I want to get rid of that positive 3 in the front to start things off. So the opposite of positive 3 is minus 3, and we're going to do that to both sides. So that would leave me with just 1/4 u equals 1 minus 3, which is negative 2. I do need to get rid of the fraction in front of the u, so let's multiply by its reciprocal. The reciprocal of 1/4 is 4 over 1. So I get u equals negative 2 times 4 is negative 8.